CNN has interviewed over 50,000 people, including some of the greatest world leaders and artists of our time, from Barack Obama to His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Kermit the Frog. Let's give a warm Weird Day welcome to the legendary Larry King!
From a man who has been called one of the greatest interviewers in the history of both television and radio. 60,000 interviews collecting those stories. Please give me an applause to Larry King. This man has such a unique window of the world. He has sat down with the greatest icons, the greatest leaders, the greatest activists. And just to give all the students here a bit of a taste, if I could ask you a few rapid-fire questions. Of the people who you've interviewed, who's the person, in your opinion, who's had the greatest impact on our modern world?
First of all, it's impossible to say about one. So, greatest impact, certainly in society in the West, would be Martin Luther King. Worldwide, no doubt, it would be an inspiration to anybody in this audience. I think he was the greatest figure of the 20th century. It was Nelson Mandela. And not only interviewed him, but I went to South Africa and I went to his house for lunch. And we had a great day. And that same night, so many things have happened to me because I was just being really a poor kid from Brooklyn. Just a little Jewish kid who wanted to be a broadcaster. I'm sitting having lunch with Nelson Mandela. And then that night, I had dinner with de Klerk, who was the president of South Africa, who released Mandela from prison. So on the same day, I'm with Mandela, I'm with the man who released him from prison. So I feel like a witness to world history.
And you have been a witness to world history, and the students here, you heard the intake of breath when you said Nelson Mandela. That is a hero to everyone in this room. Can you tell us more about that
position? I'll tell you the greatest thing you could learn, and this would affect all of you in your life, whether you're spiritual or not. Nelson Mandela was put in prison. He was an activist in South Africa, as you know. They had apartheid, one of the worst systems in the world, in which blacks were oppressed. Nelson Mandela was put in prison in Cape Town for 26 years. He was in prison. He looked out his window from that beautiful city and he could see the landings in the blue prison. He was tortured. When he was released from prison, the government invited him to go to Johannesburg to speak to the legislature. He refused. He left the prison, walked across the road, and just walked in to meet the people. He ran for office and became president of South Africa. On the day of his inauguration, the day he was inaugurated president, 26 years of president, he invited to that ceremony the guards in the prison who tortured him. He forgave. So he learned the greatest lesson.
You said Nelson Mandela.
You gotta put this on YouTube.
And you said Martin Luther King. Now you grew up, and I've seen your writings on the topic that the greatest challenge facing your generation was the civil rights movement. And even when you were a child. And you interviewed these greats. You lived through this movement. Can you share with us not only those interviews, but also lessons for these young people on how to create social change?
I'm making a different video.
Well, the one thing, the civil rights leaders, and you guys are also young. When I was 13 years old,
You'll get like
I
5,000
went
views.
to Evansville Stadium in Brooklyn, and I saw Jackie Robinson
No, so guys have just
play his
made
first
it
baseball
next
game.
to the
He was
picture,
the
right?
first black in the major leagues.
You kicked away.
Later in my life, I would interview Jackie
Justin Bieber
Robinson
coming this week.
on 2 occasions. The second one being shortly
October
before he
30th.
passed away
And
of
this
diabetes.
was like
Jackie Robinson, Martin Luther King, Whitney Young,
like an hour.
Malcolm X. These, Stokely Carmichael,
Let's take a picture
all
from me.
these leaders, what they had
I'm not a
was
perv.
perseverance.
It's yours.
They knew they were treated badly. They were treated badly for no other reason than the color of their skin. It's just one of the stupidest things you can think of. Prejudice.
Can you please switch? Can you please switch? No.
Prejudice means to prejudge. Prejudging is dumb. You don't know something and you don't like it. So these, what they had, what they all had in the civil rights movement was perseverance, the ability to get up off the floor and come back, never give up in their quest, which is what you're doing here. You don't give up.
So for all the students here, now please Google some of these names that you heard, and teachers, keep that mental list from Dr. King that we've heard, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, figures through history, and to share that message, the common theme that in sitting down with these people, they found perseverance above all else. You've also sat down with icons today, creating change. Barack Obama. I heard you were recently with Lady Gaga talking about bullying and her passion for this issue.
Oh, do I get it?
I know, lady, it's kind of weird, I do know all these people from having interviewed them. I know President Obama, I know Mitt Romney, I've interviewed 7 American presidents. But my producer told me, because, I'm not a youngster anymore, so I don't get to watch all the movies that a lot of you kids watch. So I'm going to tell you a story now. My producer, Greg Christensen, he traveled here with me, and he guarantees that this crowd will go nuts when I tell you who I flew on the plane with from LA to New York Monday night. Hold on. Ready?
Martin Luther.
I flew on the plane. Now again, he's new to me because I don't. With Taylor Lautner.
You've interviewed. What is the name that has gotten your youngest children the most excited?
This one.
Cleaning up.
No, I didn't see the name on the He's the second one that's coming in November. He's going to Rio. He's a very nice guy. He's kind of good looking. But I gotta tell you,
At least finally cleaning up his own mess.
for what young people like and what they're into, the Jonas Brothers. Sometimes older generations
Everyone's been
what younger people like. But I've always been so curious. What I did, I have a 13-year-old boy at home and a 12-year-old boy. I have 2 young children.
Who the hell is Watner?
I'm fascinated what they watch.
Lovely
What they
hair
listen to,
style.
what they like. Because if you're not curious, you're never going to learn.
Do you guys know who that is?
The only way to learn is to ask about.
Some of their hairstyles.
I'll use this in interviewing. This was my motto.
Setting up his
I
mic.
never learned anything when I was
What a dirty slut.
Mr. King, you have sat down with the greats. You sat down with everyone from Bill Gates to Dalai Lama, from Hawkins, presidents, prime ministers, from the Jonas Brothers, and Lady Gaga, and all the things. some hero, someone whose story is so inspiring that everyone here has to get up the libraries and their iPhones and Google it right now and learn about who that person was or is.
Boy, I love that. The young man you had here who climbed that mountain.
Spencer West.
I had them too slimy. I didn't mean slimy. How do you get this untied?
This story.
Oh God, I love.
Could make
Oh my God.
you
Oh my God.
and I haven't told you in a long time.
I got it.
I'm sure I was either McDonald or Carter. The name is. The story is important. One day at CNN,
I like doing this
years
with
ago in New York, they told me I was going to interview a police officer, New York City Police Department. And I like cops, and I like interviewing cops and pilots. I love people of all professions. This cop came in, and he was in a wheelchair, police uniform in a wheelchair. His wife was with him, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. Paralyzed.
Oh my God.
He had been shot in the chest and was paralyzed from the neck down. He was still a member of the police force. He was in what they call public relations, so that he would represent New York City Police at various functions. His father was a cop. His grandfather was a cop. So he sat down. He was a very nice young man. And I said to him, "What happened? How were you shot?" And he said, "Well, there was a series of bike robberies going on in New York. Bikes were being stolen. And he was in a patrol car riding through Central Park when he saw a kid with a brand new bike, brand new sparkling Schwinn bike, young black kid, about 17 years old. He got out of the squad car to approach this kid to ask him about the bike. Before he got there, the kid took out a gun and shot him.
What?
Down he went. We saw a puff of smoke come out of his chest. He was in the ambulance. They gave him the last rites of the Catholic Church, and he was going to die. He pulled through. He managed to live, but he was paralyzed from the neck down. His wife was pregnant at the time. She now has a little boy who is like 2-3 years old. He can't feel the kid when the kid touches him. He has no feeling. He was neck down. He's totally paralyzed. And what he did was, when he recovered, when he was back at home, he asked what happened to the kid who shot him. And they said, well, the kid's in jail. I think he was sentenced to whatever, was 5 to 8 years old. 5 to 8 years, he was 17 years old. He said, I want to go see him. I want to see the kid that shot me. So he went to the jail, prison. And the kid was there. Now he's like 18, I guess. Maybe he was 16 when they shot him. And naturally he said, look, I got out of my squad car. Why'd you shoot me? And the kid said, my brother was a bad guy. He had a lot of trouble, and he had this gun, and he was running out of town, and he gave me the gun to hold. I've never shot a gun in my life. I've never held a gun, never shot a gun. I was holding it that day. I had worked in a grocery store for years to save money to buy this bike. I love this bike. I bought the bike that day with my own money that I saved. I'm in Central Park with the bike, and this he says to the cop, you were the 10th cop to stop me that day, standing with my bike. The 10th cop. And I lost it, and I shot you. Because I bought that bike, and cops were stopping me, and I just lost my mind and shot you. And so the kid said, may I ask you a question? And the cop said, yes. And the kid said, would you have stopped me if I was white? And the cop said, no. And the cop told me what he realized at that moment was, no, you don't shoot people. But then he also realized in his own mind, as a police officer, he would not have approached that kid if he was white. So what he did was he put himself in that kid's shoes. He walked in that kid's shoes. Here's a kid who's worked so hard to save that his bike, and for the 11th time, cops have stopped him because he had a new bike and he was black. They assumed he had stolen the bike. And so the cop said he had to take care of himself and be aware of his own self. End of the story. The cop adopted that kid as a big brother. And that kid that kid shot that cop, is now a New York City police officer.
Mr. King, you shared wisdom of Nelson Mandela on the Courage to Forgive. You spoke about sitting down that you had with Dr. Martin Luther King and talking about perseverance being the cornerstone of the civil rights movement. You shared of all the heroes, more than, and I know we've shared Lady Gaga, and we should, and more than Jonas Brothers and their friends, and they're great activists, and we love them dearly. But even more than that, the story that inspired you was this ordinary person. And I hope everyone will Google that. Can I ask you a final question? The 60,000 interviews you've done of everyone you've sat down with, of all those people who've sat across your chair from your years of radio, years of CNN, from Eleanor Roosevelt to the greatest movie stars and the icons and the change makers, is there one last word of advice, last story, last teaching that you want to leave with these 20,000 students here who are committed to changing the world?
Oh, God. I've done so many interviews over so many times of so many people. I've done humorous interviews, I've done comedians, I've done... I want to tell you something. The best story you can give is your own. I pitch myself every day because I'm aware that a lot of things happen to me out of luck. Right place, right time. Take advantage of the luck. So the idea, whether it was civil rights or whether it was Frank Sinatra as a singer or Elvis Presley as a singer, and interviewed his manager every time. The one thing I learned from every successful person is that they wanted it. They wanted it. The doctor never went in to be a doctor for money. He went in because he wanted to help people. So I was just telling this to my friend Greg. This is a simple story of a doctor. This was a doctor. And I asked him, what makes a good doctor? What makes a good doctor? And he said, a good doctor loves sick people because he wants to help them. When you go out and you visit other countries, you help build schools, and you carry a message, and you raise money for people less fortunate than you, nothing is better than when you help someone else. There's no greater gift that you can bring, and this is every successful person I ever talked to. You have it too, you know it. The gift of giving. You get a lot when you give. So I'm telling all of you, keep on giving. And if I give you one wish, a fervent wish, is that God will look down and bring Calgary some nice weather.
to the savannah. It was her curiosity that led her to Kenya, but it was her love for the people that compelled her to stay. She's an author, a motivational speaker, and Free the Children's Kenya program director. Here to take you on a journey to free the children's newest Adopt a Village country, Ghana. Please welcome Robin Wizawadi.
To the community of the Senko is surrounded by a jungle on both sides that's so dense you can't even use a machete to cut a footpath through. Palm leaves brush up against the sides of the truck, squeezing the already narrow path as we go over the last hill and gasp at the view of the beautiful, intimate fishing village in front of us in Ghana. The Atlantic Ocean's powerful white waves come up crashing against the two rocky outcrops containing the 200-meter shore as a gonga is beaten, a bell drum calling all the community members to the shoreline for a meeting. Wooden fishing boats, painted in every primary color, are pulled from the waters up on the sand to serve as seating for the men. Women find shade under the canopy of the nearby trees, sitting on the sand with their legs outstretched in front of them, and the infants nestled in their arms, and the children find themselves in a giddy anticipation in the center of the circle.
I don't know.
In a most profound yet simple conversation, we listen to the community discuss their vision for the future as well as some of their challenges. Over half of the children aren't able to go to school. The closest school is several kilometers away and too far for the children to go after the boys help their dads reel in the fishing nets from the water, or the girls help their moms pound the local cassava crop into a flour to cook for dinner. This is seen in the test results, where less than half the children are able to pass their exams. There are 2 classrooms within the community serving as a kindergarten, but it was recently attacked earlier this year by powerful gusts of waves coming off of the sea, ripping off the roof. And this, combined with the persistent rainy patterns, meant that class had been canceled for the last several weeks without proper shelter. But then, a new, timid voice spoke up. I don't want to be the barrier to my children's education. I want them to go to school. My eyes searched the crowd until they fell upon a woman dressed loosely in Ghanaian black and white fabrics. A man stood behind her, introducing himself as the fisherman chief, stating, I want my children to have a better life, a stronger life than the difficult one I have had to lead. Something happened on the beachfront that afternoon. Heads were nodding vigorously as arms and voices were raised in emphatic points, laughter erupting amongst the urgent conversation until the community vision solidified in one voice in a community-elected leader named Paul Ajay, who spoke. We of Asemco have a vision to have a school right here in our community to balance the hours of walking with hours in the classroom. Traditional calls of support and screams erupted across the beachfront, creating this surround sound of joy as the entire community stood in standing ovation for this stated vision. And in successive meetings that followed with the chief and government officials and elders, we walked the community-allocated land until we decided where the new classroom would be built. Men from the community were trained as construction workers, standing on the top of the roof that they were helping to